Okay, we are live. Time to talk about some nerdy stuff. Alrighty. So this is my first official stream. The plan is basically talk about whatever. All the tech stuff that's going on, and there's a lot, especially this week. So I kind of just put some talking points up here. Some things I want to go through and discuss. Doesn't have to follow this at all. We can talk about pretty much anything that your heart desires. So yeah, that's the plan. Let me fix some of this stuff. Okay, so Alder Lake obviously is out. And if you don't know that, then you've been under a rock for the past at least a week. I did like a short test stream the other day, and we discussed a little bit about Intel's 12th gen chips. But this is the first time in probably a long time that I'm excited for an Intel release. Because what have they done significant in the last 8 generations? The only significant thing I can think of is going from 7000 series to 8000 series they added. They broke the trend of many years of 4 cores, 8 threads, and gave us the 8700K with 6 cores and 12 threads. But now this is way different. With their 12th generation, it's a completely new architecture. They're stealing ideas, probably not stealing ideas, I don't know. Yo, what up, RG? Cheers, man. But yeah, 12th gen, they are stealing the ideas of ARM-based chips as well as Apple's new M1, and they're going with kind of a big little CPU configuration. So I'm sure that's, oh wow, this article is not that great. See if they talk about it a little bit more here. I just want like a picture. There's a lot of benchmarks. That's what I want to eventually talk about. But yeah, the gist of it is that instead of doing 4 cores, 8 threads, just the same high-end cores, it's now broken down into performance cores and efficiency cores. And I can't believe it's this difficult to find a breakdown on it. So yeah, this shows kind of the SKUs that we have seen released. And let's see, we have the 12900K at the top of the list. That's where you see your 8 cores, 16 threads. And as well, you get 8 efficiency cores. So it's weird, you know, and for most chips you say, oh, I have 8 cores, that means 16 threads. But for these chips, it's different. So theoretically, this has 16 cores, but you're only getting 24 threads, 16 on the performance and 8 more on the efficiency cores. And the whole idea behind that was power efficiency, so that for all these kind of micro tasks that are going on in the background, these efficiency cores are kind of just going to hang out and handle those while your performance ones come in for the actual stuff. So it's different. It's new. We've never seen anything like this in a desktop system. So And the benchmarks that have come out have been impressive. I'm honestly surprised. So let's go back and take a look at those benchmarks. Do they say what the idle power draw is? So let's see. I believe I kind of want to get to the power in a second. I want to get a good table there, but overall, I believe idle, I don't think they're that much more power efficient. They're certainly better than the 11th gen Intel chips, but I think a lot of benchmarks are showing that they kind of sit in between like the Ryzen chips and Intel's 11th gen. So kind of on par with that. So I bet there's a lot of tweaking and stuff that has to be done to handle all that. But for brand new, right out of the gate, they are performing pretty well. So if we go through here, I think the big ticket one was this i5 12600K. That's actually one that I bought because of how impressive it was in all the benchmarks, as well as the price. So it's directly competing with AMD's 5600X. So if we go to Cinebench, this is R20 single threaded. And Intel's kind of always been on top of AMD in terms of single threaded performance. So it's not surprising to see this, but to beat it by that much, that's a whole almost probably what, like 18% better. Let's see, let's go to, what is this? Oh, Geekbench. So Geekbench, same kind of thing as Cinebench. You actually seen the 1100 or the 11 series beating it. Passmark as well. The 12th generation is just way ahead of the 11th gen series, as well as Ryzen's kind of competing budget platform. Yes, I did just get one. Let me pull up the, I can't remember exactly what I got a Gigabyte motherboard with it, but let's see. Let me find my, let me just log in and I'll show you kind of what I bought. So I didn't go with the DDR5. I know it's a big selling point of the new chips. Hey, DDR5, but the DDR5 boards are more expensive, and DDR5 RAM itself is more expensive. So I chose not to go with that. Yeah, okay. Is this something I can... Yeah. So I went with this guy here. Can I even... No, it's not going to let me. So I want the 12600K. It's $320. So, you know, not a terrible price. That's kind of online or on par with, you know, Ryzen offerings. So if we look up, what was it, 12600K? I don't even know if they're in stock anymore. From what I've heard, everything went out of stock really quickly. So they do still have the 12600 in stock, apparently. Sale ends in 7 hours. I don't think they're on sale, so I don't know what that's about. Do you think we're going to see a competing... Oh, I think people have already been tweeting out that we've seen price drops directly from... It was the Ryzen 5800X is already seeing price cuts. So yeah, look, apparently just today, this is this Micro Center? Who is this? Yeah, this is Micro Center. Ryzen 7 5800X, which is their 8-core 16-thread chip, is already marked down to $300. So undercutting the 12600K by 20 bucks. So, I mean, this is good because obviously when AMD and Intel are both making good chips, they're actually competing, because when Intel was the king, they could kind of set whatever prices they wanted because there was no real direct competition. Then the last couple of years when AMD took over, I think everybody was used to AMD being kind of the budget processors. And then when they saw AMD chips being more expensive than Intel's, it was like, wait, what's going on here? So now that Intel has finally come back with something comparable, we're going to see prices obviously get more competitive. So yeah, now instead of, because a lot of benchmarks had this chip right here, the 2600K, directly competing with the 5600K because, or the 5600X, because the 5600X is a 6-core 12-thread processor, right? I don't want to get that wrong. Yes, so this is what it's directly competing with. And we haven't seen a price drop on this yet. Ooh, down 1 cent today. Better pick one up. 100, that doesn't even make any sense. So yeah, this, you're getting 6 cores, 12 threads, you know, standard, what you're used to seeing desktop chips for the last forever. But now if you go with one of these guys, it's 10 cores, but you get 6 performance and 4 efficiency cores. So that's basically a 6-core 12-thread processor with 4 kind of efficiency, smaller cores with no hyper-threading on them. And I mean, in every benchmark, it's been killing the 5600X. So at this point, I mean, this right here, the 5600X was the go-to when someone said, hey, I'm going to build a computer. I want it to be, you know, cost efficient, and I want it to be good at kind of everything. This is what everybody recommended, the 5600X. So now I think that's going to change, honestly. And I know the meme is that these Intel 690 boards are so expensive. Why even buy those? You can't even get DDR5 right now. And yes, that's partly true, but there's also DDR4 versions of the boards. So let's look at what I actually bought. I went with the MSI, or no, Gigabyte 690 or Z690i. Right here. So $289. I mean, that's not cheap, obviously. But it's far from the $400 and $500 people are claiming that these boards are going to cost. And this is a micro or mini ITX board, which are usually more expensive because people like tiny things. Same. What's the TDP difference? So that's the interesting thing that we've seen. So they market this one as 125 watt TDP. This one is marketed at 65 watts, but TDP, it's not really a standard that has any real meaning from the manufacturer. It could mean, like, AMD could say, yeah, 65 watts is pretty much all, nothing running on it at all. While Intel could say, oh, well, our TDP is with kind of this base load on it. So this is what you're going to see under normal load. So they're not really comparable when you look at it like that. But from a lot of benchmarks, they're pretty equal in terms of power efficiency under normal load. The big thing that we've seen, though, is the 12900K is actually basically a space heater if you're using it for productivity tasks. So I bet if I type 12900K power draw. So yeah, this is saying at full loads for certain tasks, the 12900K can draw more than 240 watts of power, which is extremely high. That's just nuts. That's just on the processor. Yeah, Z690 is high. Sadly, talking TDP from AMD or Intel shooting. Yeah, when you go to buy a processor and they market, they show you this TDP or whatever, 65 watts. Basically, just throw it out the window because it doesn't really mean anything. It'll give you a ballpark if you want to compare AMD versus AMD processors or Intel versus Intel processors, but going and saying, oh, 65 watts versus 125, this one's going to be way more power efficient. That's not the case. Your best bet is to go to an actual reviewer who's taken the chip and shown, oh, this is what it's like under idle. This is what it's like under a moderate load, or gaming. This is what it's like if you're rendering or running a benchmark or something. It's basically the same as my 1080. Yeah, imagine your processor pulling as much power as your high-end graphics card, which is nuts. I mean, it pulls more power. So this PC behind me is running a Ryzen 5950X, 16-core, 32-thread. What's going on here? 16-core, 32-thread processor, and it pulls more power than that. And I have a 3080 Ti in there as well. And I have a pretty decently robust custom loop, and it's still, I wouldn't say it struggles to keep everything cool. I mean, it works, but I couldn't imagine throwing 12900K in there and having even more heat to dissipate from there. That's just insane. But in terms of performance, let's go back and look at some of these benchmarks. I want to show ones. So it's a good indication to look at single threaded CPU performance, and a lot of times that's going to be a direct correlation between single threaded performance and gaming performance. So the FPS you're going to get, obviously there's other factors in terms of, you know, what monitor resolution you're running at and what graphics card you have, but keeping those things the same, upgrading a processor could give you, you know, a significant lift in FPS and gaming based on looking at kind of these single threaded performances. So, I mean, let's see, we got to be able to find some just FPS numbers somewhere. So what's this? So this is interesting right here. So Cinebench R20 multi-threaded. This is the 12900K, so this is the top of the line Intel chip. And this is the Ryzen 9 5950X top of the line AMD chip. And apparently Intel has taken the crown back over for multi-threaded. I mean, this is a single benchmark. This isn't an indication of, you know, real world performance on your specific software, but to see the top of the line Intel chip beating the 5950X and Cinebench, that's pretty impressive. So, but yeah, I wish this had more. I wish this showed the 12600K, but I guess they didn't feel like that was a fair comparison. So in Geekbench, we see even more of a lead from Intel on multi-threaded performance, which is, if you would have asked somebody a year ago, or if you would have told them that Intel's 12th gen chips would be beating a Ryzen 9 5950X in multi-threaded benchmarks, I guarantee you they would have not believed you based on Intel's past, how long have they been on 14 nanometer chips? Since 7000 series, 7000 14 nanometer. But yeah, they've been on 14 nanometer for the last forever. So when they finally moved to their 10 nanometer process, bam, a huge increase in performance. But now, apparently on Passmark, you're seeing the 5950X still reigns supreme. So that's why you can't really take one benchmark and say, oh, look, I ran Cinebench and the i9 and the Ryzen 9 are basically the same. And then someone else runs Geekbench and says, nah, man, the 12900K is way better than the 5950X. And then somebody else says, oh, hey, I have a 5950X. I ran Passmark and it shit all over the 12900K. So I don't know what you're talking about. That's how benchmarks work. They're not all the same. They're going to have differences. Each processor is going to have strengths and weaknesses. So it all comes down to what you do on your computer. And that's going to determine what's the best for you. So I figure since you told us to ask, I'm going to ask, what is your day job? So my actual day job, I do work in IT. Shocking, right? I do application support. So that is a broad way of saying we have a bunch of applications that are both written by vendors as well as written by our internal team. And I do support on those as well as development for custom apps. So I work for a utility company and we do a lot of work with real-time operators of the power grid and stuff. And they have a lot of applications that they need to be using to do their jobs correctly. So we support a good bit of those as well as kind of field requests for custom apps. Finally, someone local. Am I local? Where are you at, Charles? Benchmarks will also have run-to-run differences based on cooling as well. That is true. So I don't know if they said anywhere in here where they might have said somewhere the specific system they're running it on as well as the cooling. So this one could have pushed it harder and they could have had better cooling on the 5950X because as we talked about before, this 12900K sucking back 280 watts, that's hard to cool. And when the embargo lifted the other day and all the big tech reviewers dropped their reviews on these, I watched Linus's video and they were even struggling to keep the 12900K cool with the Noctua NH, 15H or something, whatever the Noctua's big fancy cooler is. So to see that struggle, the Noctua cooler struggle to keep this thing cool is not a good sign if you're looking to buy this and do some serious rendering work. Unless you live in like Alaska or something in the winter and you want this to double as a space heater or something, then you might be good there. I'm in Katy. Oh, nice. I had someone else comment on one of my videos or one of my posts saying that they're in the Houston area as well. So hello, do you think Xeon prices will drop since they have been beaten by the new generation, specifically for the used Xeon prices? That is something I want to talk about here. I don't know if you read my little note. Is Xeon viable these days? Xeon's in a weird kind of spot. So if we go back in time a bit, say 10 years ago, where you had desktop offerings from Intel and AMD like you do today, but the max you saw was 4 cores and 8 threads on Intel's top of the line. I think AMD came out with some chips that were like 6 core or something. but they sucked back then, so it wasn't even really worth it. Whereas back then you still had Xeon processors with 10, 12, 14 cores, and nothing's changed over the years. You still need more cores for your servers. The more the better. So when there was that much of a difference between, I could get 14 cores, 28 threads, and if I had a dual socket motherboard, I can get 28 cores and 56 threads versus 4 cores and 8 threads on a desktop platform. Xeon made a lot of sense. And I don't believe AMD had anything out in terms of the server line. So Xeon kind of reigned supreme. They could charge whatever they want. You're seeing thousands of dollars for these processors. Now let's look at today. I mean, my desktop CPU here has 16 cores, 32 threads, which is, I mean, obviously you want as many cores as you can get in your server, but 16 cores, 32 threads is certainly enough for a lot of home servers, or a lot of things people would use a Xeon for back in the day. So Xeon's kind of in a weird spot. I don't know where it's going from here. The benefits you get today from Xeon, obviously you still get a couple more cores. I think they have some that go up to 20 cores maybe now. But still with the server platform, you're getting way more PCI lanes. So if you're looking to build like a NAS, like a huge NAS with a lot of drives, and you need a lot of like HBA cards to connect, and you need a lot of PCI lanes, something like this Ryzen 5950X isn't going to cut it, because you essentially only get 20 PCI lanes, which is fine for maybe 2 HBA cards with no graphics card in there at all. But Xeon still kind of has a place, but now with AMD's EPYC lineup, I don't know, because I built a server and I'm running an AMD EPYC because it was cheaper and I could get 16 cores, 32 threads with 128 lanes of PCI Gen 4 for about, I think I paid $700 for that processor. So the market for used ones, though, I love the market for used Xeon processors. That's what I recommend to anybody getting into home servers. If you don't know exactly what you want to go with or what to build, I mean, older Xeon processors on eBay, you can pick them up from as low as like 20 bucks. And obviously they still have some of the premium ones out there, and that can go up to maybe like 200. But for something like an E5 2697 V2, which is like a good processor, we're looking at 12 cores, 24 threads, 2.7 gigahertz, I think that's base clock, for $100. And you can get a motherboard that you can slap 2 of them in there. So there's definitely still a market for them. They're not going to be as fast in single-threaded tasks, but if you want to spin up a bunch of VMs, if you want to run a NAS, I definitely recommend older Xeon chips. My statement is more for people who run these at home and get different results. I'm aware that the newer processors from Intel both boost differently due to thermal headroom. Right, so if you're just slapping these in your machine out of the box, they definitely will have different turbo boosts and different performance metrics. If you're just setting it up and going, obviously you can go in and tweak them, but I've kind of assumed that people who are really into benchmarking and things like that kind of know, overclocking and what to do with overclocks. But obviously there's people out there who are shopping around and are just going to go to Google and type in 5950X versus 12900K, and then just see one graph and be like, all right, done. So yeah, there's a lot of things that go into these benchmarks. And a lot of sites, when they do benchmarks, they kind of explain, what their cooling solution is, what kind of, did they apply, overclocking, did they use precision boost overdrive for AMD's stuff, but yeah, that's a good point. You have a lot of videos about building small servers for usage, what's actually stayed in your home lab, and what services are you running. So right now I have two main servers, I guess you could say, that are on 24/7. I have my main production one, which is, I made a video about it. It's my Epic, I can't remember the freaking 7302, and that runs basically my entire production home lab. So if we go in here, you'll see, let's actually go into it. Let me take this off. Did that even work? Oh, psych. All right, hold on. I'm getting used to this. So let's log in. Apparently there's like tools that can listen to you typing in your password and know what you were typing. So if you're that impressive, let me know. So right now, let's just look at what's running. I have Truenas, which is my NAS system, which I really enjoy. A lot of people have come in and said, oh, do you run Open Media Vault or whatever? I want to one day, but I've had such a good experience with Truenas that I don't really have the urge to use Open Media Vault, but I do want to spin up an instance of it and check it out, just so that when people kind of ask, oh, what's the difference, or which one do you prefer, I can at least say, or give my opinion, rather than saying, oh, I've never used it, so I don't know. So this is my Truenas setup. I've dedicated 64 gigs to it, so I do have 128 on my server. 64 of those are going directly to Truenas, because if you know anything about Truenas, it uses ZFS, and ZFS loves RAM. So the more RAM you can give to a Truenas system, the better. I do want to eventually upgrade to 256 gigs in my server. That way I can maybe throw more over here. But I have it broken down to a couple of pools. 3 to be exact. One is my main one. This is 4 12 terabyte drives, and they are set up in a striped mirror. So I have 2 that are mirrored together, and the other 2 are mirrored together, and that entire pool, those 2 are striped together. So you get the benefits of redundancy as well as the speed of striping. So I have that in there with a cache drive as well as a Zlog cache. So it's pretty speedy. I have 2 6 terabyte drives in RAID, or in RAID Z1, so it's just a mirror. And this is for my Plex stuff. And then I have some solid state drives in a RAID Z1. I can't remember but it's the I guess it's RAID Z1. So meaning that one drive can fail and I'm good to go. I think there's what? Oh wait, no, these are mirrored. They used to be in RAID Z1, but I just recently switched it to mirrored 2 terabyte drives. So I do have a 10 gigabit connection directly to it, which is super convenient because I actually edit all my videos and photos and everything off of this solid state array, this pool. That way it's constantly backed up. If I'm editing something and a drive dies, I still have the backup or the redundancy of RAID, as well as the backup on my backup server. And I don't have to worry about, a project being lost ever. So I don't even edit. I edit on this machine using a 10 gigabit connection, but I don't keep the footage on there. For backup, like I said, I have 2 servers running. I have a backup server running SyncThing. So I have an instance of SyncThing running on my main server, and SyncThing is just used to kind of back up all files throughout my system. And I like SyncThing because it's extremely, I wouldn't say it's intuitive right out of the gate, but once you've used it for like a day and kind of fiddled with some things, it's really intuitive, really easy to use. You can throw it on a Linux box, a Windows box, I think Mac, maybe. But it basically keeps all your files in sync and makes it easy to back up certain devices or certain drives. So my backup server is just running Ubuntu with a version of SyncThing, and that's its dedicated primary job, is to say whenever I throw footage or I take footage from my camera and throw it on the SSD array in Truenas, that's immediately going to get backed up through SyncThing. So it's pretty cool. I got the 5700G and I'm very happy with it. Yes, the 5700G is still my recommendation for the current market in terms of GPUs being absolutely miserable to buy. Because we kind of, I guess over the years, you know, we've seen monitors get higher and higher in terms of resolution, but still 1080p, you know, while it was new, this new resolution 10 years ago or whatever, it's still it is the most popular resolution that people still game and use. And while resolution has stayed the same, our integrated graphics on these processors have gotten better and better. Where, you know, years ago, if you were using integrated graphics, it was like, can this even run at 720p? Now with the 5700G, a lot of, especially esport titles, are easily running on a 1080p monitor. So definitely, I mean, and even without its integrated graphics, it's still an 8-core, 16-thread processor. So I'm very high on that. Sorry, bedtime here in the UK. I want to say that you're an amazing channel. Love your content. Thank you. Chet, I'm going to butcher that name, dude. I apologize. Is it Chetan? Especially your NAS stuff. I'm running TrueNAS on my HP 40NL, 16 GB RAM, 4 terabytes, and RAID 5. Nice. Hey, man, I appreciate that very much. I didn't really think I'd ever be sitting here streaming with people actually joining and wanting to talk about tech stuff. So this is actually really cool. But hey, man, enjoy your night. Sleep tight. I think that was software developed by my son and requires a phone to be placed very precisely. Oh, yeah, you're talking about the hacking the password only with audio. Yeah, that would be, I don't know if I've ever seen that working, like for real, but I would be interested to see somebody actually get that working. Have you run into issues when you delete containers in Proxmox? I would stand up a container, define it in Proxmox as GUI, and try to add another one in the same pool, and Proxmox would fail. In Proxmox, I haven't run into many issues with containers. As you can see, I don't have many containers here, if any at all, running right now. But I do want to transition some of my stuff to containers. I think SyncThing is one that I could do. I don't know if there's a container for Plex available, but I might want to do that. You can host some Ubuntu servers. So if anything, SyncThing right now, I could just run it in an Ubuntu server container and have it, do its thing. But, I've had people comment and say, you're running all these things. Why aren't you running them in containers? And while I 100% agree that's the most efficient way to do it, a lot of these things that I run, I had very little experience with. So I kind of wanted to run them in a native Linux environment just so I can go in and play with them more easily and make configurations more easily. And it works for me. I have a lot of headroom on my server, so I'm not too worried about efficiency yet. So, but eventually, yes, I do want to transition these to containers. But yeah, if you asked me which is better, I would obviously containers. Much less headroom than spinning up a dedicated virtual machine. Yo, Nacho, what up? Welcome back. What did I miss? Oh, you're being too kind. The GPU market is literally a tech guy's horror film. Dude, yeah, it's miserable. I had a buddy contact me the other day, like, hey man, where do I get a GPU? Like, I'm trying to build a PC. I'm like, if I knew, I'd be a rich man right now. But your only bet, from what I've seen, I've won the Newegg Shuffle twice, and that's over months and months and months of entering every single day. There's basically two or three options, I would say. The Newegg Shuffle, Micro Center. They used to do raffles. I don't know if they still do the raffles anymore, but those were miserable because Micro Center is like an hour from me, and you have to drive there in person just to see if there was a raffle that day. And then maybe you could get a ticket, and then maybe you could win, and you don't know how many cards they have. So I never really did that. One of my other friends did it once, and it didn't work. Or you could just go on eBay and pay scalper prices. So no, it's miserable. Say something about the flags for the old container. We're still in place, even though Proxmox would show an empty disk. Flags for the old container were still in place. Are you talking about when you were having issues spinning the new one up, or show an empty disk? Huh. Are you running Plex with Ubuntu? Yes. Plex is running on a dedicated Ubuntu VM. That's how I had it running before, when I was running VirtualBox. So I just migrated it essentially and set it up the same way. It's not the most efficient way of doing it, but my idea was eventually I want to pass through a GPU to it and do hardware encoding on my Plex server. So I know there's a way you can do GPU pass through to an Ubuntu machine. I assume there's a way you can do it like through other containers and Docker maybe. But again, like it's like my other stuff. I want to get to containerizing a lot of this stuff. I just haven't got around to it yet. When I eventually do, I will 100% make a video on it, because not only is it going to be useful for me and a huge learning experience for me, I think it'll help out a lot of people who are in the same boat, kind of wanting to make their servers efficient as possible with containers rather than utilizing a bunch of VMs. There's a Ryzen 5. What did I miss? Likelihood of a 5600 non-X being a thing. So, is there really not a 50? I guess there's not, huh? So, AMD is so much, not so much different, but Intel has such a distinct difference between their SKUs on the same kind of number. So for Intel, you get 3 SKUs for kind of each processor. So taking, for example, the 12900 processor, there's going to be a 12900. They might not do it. So say the i7, the 12700, there's going to be a 12700, which is, you know, the base processor with integrated graphics and no overclocking. Then they have the 12700K, which is the same processor, but it's unlocked, so you can kind of overclock it and do what you want with it. Then they have the KF, so it's the same as a K, but with no integrated graphics. Ryzen's kind of weird. They have usually 2 SKUs, right? So in this case, they would have a 5600 per se, and then a 5600X, where the 5600 with the non-X versions are also unlocked, but they just have a lower base clock, I think. So it's kind of weird. I usually recommend people to get the non-X version if they're on a budget, because it may just be that in the factory they're taking the bin CPUs with the best silicon and slapping an X on them and saying these are the X versions, and the ones that aren't as good after the manufacturing process are just labeled non-X versions. Maybe that's literally what they're doing. But, you know, usually they're what, like $20 to $30 cheaper. So what, I assume they haven't done that because of the chip shortage. I don't think they're in any spot right now to be offering a bunch of different SKUs of their processors when they can barely get out enough of their regular ones. So maybe that's why, but that's my speculation. Please make lots of content about making and maintaining containers when you start. Yeah, I definitely plan on doing that. That's kind of how I started with the home lab stuff. I never really intended for this channel to be about networking and home labs, because when I started this channel like about a year and a half ago, I wasn't really big into servers or networking at all. I just wanted to do like a tech channel about computers and stuff. And if you look at my first videos on the channel, they're not about networking or servers really that much at all. But you know, as being a tech nerd, I kind of got into that and thought, well, man, this is some interesting stuff. I may as well make some videos on it. And those were the ones that kind of got more popular, and which I continued to work on and learn about, and eventually worked my way up. And this is, you know, where I'm at now. And I still have a lot more stuff to learn. So don't be fooled and think that I'm some like networking or server wizard. It's just me learning very slowly over the last year or so, and progressing. So the more I learn, the more videos I can make on it, and that's kind of the idea. Anything I can do that'll help somebody, that took me weeks to figure out. If I can make a 10-minute video to save them that headache, that's usually the plan. There's a Ryzen 5 5600G for sale on B&H for $229. So the G versions are I don't like how they did that, because they're not the same architecture as the 5600. So if you look at a 5600, one's like we're on what, Zen 2 Plus right now or something. 5600G versus 5600X. Or that's how it was before. I still think that's how it is for the 5000 series, but yo, come on. What is this screen it's giving me? I don't like this. All right. I don't want to watch a video right now. Just tell me the truth. Oh, this again. Can't stand this guy's. Okay. I probably should have read that next comment, huh? I just want to look at the architecture, but let's see. Can I find it? Let's look at the wiki. So the 5600G is 7 nanometer Zen 3. So it is Zen 3. So what's the 5600X? Where they corrected the okay, so it is. That's good because the 4000 series was kind of backwards and confusing. So that is good that they corrected that. So I assume, yeah, the 5600 is also Zen 3. Wait, no, I don't want just Ryzen. What am I looking at? So Zen 3, blah, 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 5600X. Okay, cool. So yeah, 5600G essentially would be almost a 5600X, but I assume they had to tone down the power draw directly to the processor because, you know, they need room and headroom for the integrated graphics. So almost the same chip, I would say. Felt like Micro Center started scalping. Oh yeah, back to GPU. Yeah, Micro Center and Newegg, because the 3080 I bought. This freaking guy right here was not MSRP at all. This is the Aorus Extreme 3080 Ti, and it has a built-in water block, which is cool because I have a custom water-cooled system. But it sucks that if I ever want to sell it or something, the market for reselling a GPU with only a water block on it is a lot smaller. But I think it was like $1,800, which, what was the MSRP for a 3080 Ti supposed to be? Like 800, I think, 799 or 899, and then add at most $200 water block, and you're looking at like $1,100. It's a freaking 50% markup from a retailer. Insane. Anyone is on a budget when it's $800 graphics cards start out at $1,800 just because they felt like it. Yep. I don't know enough about the laws and how, you know, MSRP is supposed to work. I know that's an issue with cars right now too. I've seen a lot of people talking about the MSRP. You go to look at the window kind of tag for buying a car, and it's like, oh, MSRP 30,000, dealer additions to the car another 1,000, and then there's a line that says like adjusted for market 10,000, just because. So I don't know, man. I just know this chip shortage, it needs to end, and from all the reports I've seen, it's not supposed to end until 2023. So we got a whole nother year. Xeons are still extremely popular in data center, at least where I work. We mainly do website hosting. You don't need the high speed gigahertz, but more cores is more important to a degree, at least. Yeah, that's one of the things that I was reading about when AMD first came out with their Epic line, because the corporate and server world in terms of customers is so much different than, you know, desktop consumers, because a person in the market to buy a desktop computer is probably just going to go out tomorrow and buy a desktop computer. people or corporations that have these servers that are need to be up 100%, and they've been running for years and years using kind of the same architecture, the same chips. They know, they're like, oh, I know my Xeons work. I'm very comfortable with these Intel chips. So when I upgrade, I'm going to use Intel. And even when I do upgrade, it's got to go through a whole budget meeting. And, you know, it's not just like going out and buying a freaking PC from Best Buy or something. So corporations, and they're less worried about, I wouldn't say they're less worried about money. Everybody's worried about money, but they're more worried about reliability. And if they have to pay a little bit more for it, from my experience, they will. So it's not surprising to see that Xeons are still popular in the corporate world. I know specifically we run Xeons because we're a utility and we don't really do anything new school. So yeah, we still have a lot of everything. All our main servers are Xeons. I remember your video on it. Happy belated B-Day. Hope you're enjoying the car. Thank you. I appreciate that, Gary. That was my birthday present to myself, and I do like it. I've seen a noticeable increase for video editing, and especially rendering. The power of that thing is nuts. Not that I needed it. I mean, I put out a video like maybe once a week, depending on what I feel like doing. So it's not like the difference between a 20-minute render and like a 40-minute render really matters, but it gave me justification for buying it, and I like having cool tech. So, which is why I'm very adamantly keep telling myself that I don't need the new MacBook M1 Max version. Because, man, that thing is a beast and could honestly probably replace my machine in terms of productivity with very little probably difference in terms of video editing. But I'm not gonna buy it. I'm gonna try not to buy it. But it could replace it. The only scalping laws that come into play have to do with food, cleaning supplies, etc. Yeah, so life essentials. Yeah, the government's like, hey, you can't just mark up bread to like $100, which makes sense. I mean, nobody needs a graphics card. You need food. You need basic supplies to live. So yeah, that makes sense. I'm a Windows guy, and I even want to buy one of those M1 MacBooks just to, dude. Yeah, I wouldn't characterize myself as a Windows or a Mac guy. I mean, I have an iPhone. I have a freaking M1 iPad, and I have an M1 MacBook Air. So slowly over the years, I've integrated back into the Apple ecosystem, but for work, for gaming, for productivity stuff, I still use Windows. Just because obviously, or I don't really game as much as I used to, but you know, when I was gaming, you know, there's no brainer, you go with Windows. But as I've started gaming less and doing more actual work, editing work, the reason to stick with Windows has dwindled. The main one keeping me around was that if you wanted to get into the Mac ecosystem for productivity and editing, you were basically stuck with Mac hardware. And Mac hardware meaning that, like a Windows machine, I can put together my own processor that I want, whatever graphics card I want, however much RAM I want. And to an extent, you can kind of do that with the Mac Pros, but I mean, I don't know if you've seen the prices of a Mac Pro, but they're like base, like 8,000 for the worst one. So, but now with Apple designing their own silicon and how the M1s have progressed from version 1 to version 2, the potential for a Mac Pro with an Apple dedicated graphics card is probably going to be nuts. And just seeing what their M1 Max chip is doing in a laptop it's insane. I mean, I know there's people out there who hate Apple and refuse to ever own anything Apple, but you can't deny that these chips that they've created are insanely impressive. The M1 Mac comes with a chip that has the big cores and little cores, yeah. Then Intel comes out with the P cores and E cores, and then they expect us not to question it at all. Yeah, I mean, so I believe the first like big little design was in obviously cell phones for like Snapdragon, I think did it. And I don't know if Snapdragon did it first or if Apple did it first in their what do they call the chips in the iPhones? Their I can't remember. Bionic, Bionic. I think those use kind of a big little design, but so does Snapdragon for their chips. And then Apple was like, hey, let's transition that to desktop grade stuff. And that's where M1 came out. And then Intel, rightfully so, jumped on the bandwagon. And obviously the research and development for that had to be many, many years back. I don't think they just saw the M1 and decided to whip one up themselves, but that's definitely the right direction for. This is the first time we're seeing it. I said it earlier. This is the first time we're seeing it in desktop systems. So I think personally, I expected more of a power efficiency increase in efficiency than what people are showing. But I mean, it's their first iteration of this kind of efficiency or performance and efficiency core, big little design. So I think they'll get better as the generations go on, especially because it requires a lot of software implementation to handle the threads and decide what's being run on an efficiency core versus what's being run on a performance core and whatnot. So it makes a lot of sense in notebooks where your power is much more important than in a desktop because of obviously battery life. But to see it in desktops is pretty cool, especially with the performance we're seeing out of it. So, yeah. Primary Windows, but I play on Mac, Linux, yeah. Because, yeah, I'm a geek, pretty much. Yeah, same. I don't have one preference over the other. You know, you go to some forums and you're like, yeah, I mean, I use Windows. And they're like, oh, what? Use Windows? What the? Use the super obscure version of Linux, man. It's so much better. Like, yeah, maybe, but I like Windows. Leave me alone. I like Windows. I'm comfortable with it. I have no problems using it. I use Linux for other things and my home server, and I use Mac. So I use them all. Makes you wonder who keeps company. Oh, so yeah, I mean, with all the NDAs those people have to sign, I assume confidentiality is pretty strict, but that doesn't mean that things don't get out. And I think a lot of them know what each other are working on. Because yeah, like you said, it's awfully convenient that Apple comes out with this big little design for their main systems, and Intel's like, hey, check it out. Look what we did as well. But yeah, things get out, I'm sure, down in the valley. I pretty much only use Linux, switched to study ethical hacking, then got into programming and such. Haven't switched back to Windows, even though I'm a gamer, because all the games I play work on Linux. Yeah, Linux has come so far for the average desktop user. One of the big things was, or there were kind of two, I think, major things keeping a lot of people from switching to use Linux as their main operating system. One being the interfaces. Windows has been around forever, and it's just something people pick up when they're younger, and that's what they get comfortable with. So as you saw Ubuntu get more popular and develop into this kind of Windows, looks like Windows, but kind of performs like Mac type thing, people got more comfortable with using that as their daily driver. And then the second one being gaming, obviously. If you're, what is this on my screen? Oh, if you're a gamer, you use Windows. That's kind of how it's always been. But with the improvements we've seen probably in just the last couple of years, there have been so many implementations in Linux to where you can actually game on them now, whether they're natively supported now in Linux, the game you want to play, or like in Steam, they have that Proton layer that runs over any game and basically takes all the Windows APIs that are required to run a game and directly converts them in real time to Linux APIs to run it. And it's very impressive. The performance you can get. Not all games run great using Proton, but I've seen instances where you get within, you're probably in like the 95th percentiles in terms of where the Windows game runs. So it's like I said before, competition among anything is good for the consumer, whether that's Intel versus AMD, NVIDIA versus AMD, or just Apple versus, or Mac OS versus Windows versus Linux. So I got to bounce. Have a great rest of the stream. Thanks, Gary. I appreciate you stopping in and asking questions, being part of the chat. So awesome, man. I don't know when I'll do this again in the future, but I'm having a good time hanging out and talking tech. So could be a regular thing, but all right, man. See you next time. I have a Ryzen 7 1700 right now. Excited to go to a 2600X. Yeah, the difference in generations from Horizon first gen to the 5000 series is a massive improvement. Man, what was before Ryzen? The line that was like awful. Everyone thought AMD was going to go out of business. Freaking Bulldozer. Was that what was before? And that shit just flopped. And I'm pretty sure AMD was close to getting canned. But when Ryzen came out, I don't think the expectations were very high because of how terrible Bulldozer was. And man, it was great. I mean, still wasn't as good as Intel, but it made a significant leap back into the game where they're at least somewhat competitive. And then they've just made crazy improvements generation after generation. That's why you see AMD regain the crown in terms of desktop processors, and why I bought AMD stock many years ago, and I'm glad to see them doing well. Once I got Manjaro working with Lutris, is it Lutris or Lutris? Lutris and Battle.net, I haven't gone back to Windows at all. Yeah, so a month ago, I would say, I installed Pop! OS to on a SSD and threw it in my main rig, and I was dual booting. For a week straight, I only used Pop! OS just to see. And I even posted in one of my polls. I was like, hey, what video do you guys want to see? Like cloud gaming, walk through my TrueNAS, blah, blah. And the least voted one was to see my thoughts on Pop! OS and using Pop! OS exclusively for an extended period. So I kind of put that on a back burner, but I do have thoughts about using it. And I was using Letras for because the main game I play is League of Legends. If I want to just quick, like a 30-minute game, just to satiate my gaming itch, I'll just play a game of League of Legends. And obviously it's not natively supported, which is annoying, but I did get it working through Letras. It was not as intuitive as I would have liked, but I did get it working and it was running. So with a little elbow grease, I think in Linux, you can get a lot of things working, even if they're not natively supported. 8320 Bulldozer was the first 5 gigahertz, I thought. I remember it being super hot though. Yeah, that was the thing. Its downfall was, so when it came out, I think I remember the hype around Bulldozer. Because what was before Bulldozer was still was that really like Phenoms? Their Athlon and Phenom kind of lineup. But yeah, Bulldozer, when they announced it, they're like crazy clock speeds, 4 point whatever, 5 gigahertz. And everyone was like, this is going to be crazy. So I remember the hype for Bulldozer being insane. And then when they released it, what was it? It could like boost up to 5, like barely. And yeah, it got super hot, throttled back down, and freaking the amount of power it drew, as well as the IPCs on it were awful. So there's two aspects to how much work or how fast your processor can get things done. The clock speed, which is just mostly what's advertised because it's that sexy number you can throw out, like boost up to 5.2 gigahertz. And IPCs, or instructions per cycle, meaning how many tasks can it actually do per clock cycle. So yeah, while the Bulldozer was, at 5 gigahertz, its IPC was awful. So yeah, you got that sexy 5 gigahertz number, but it wasn't doing much during each cycle. So Pops OS, Father OS. Pop! OS is great. Using it every day. Yeah, I've seen a lot of people recommend Pop! OS. That's kind of why I did it, because I mean the obvious go-to is like, hey, I used Ubuntu every day and blah blah blah, and Ubuntu's been around forever, so I kind of wanted to at least do something a little different. So yeah, I the main thing I love about running Linux as kind of your daily driver, and even for production and coding and stuff, it's like, oh, if you need a package or a service or something to run, just app get install package name. As long as your repositories are up to date and everything's good, it's just so easy to get things running in Linux versus Windows. And that's what I've noticed about using Pop! OS. It's so convenient. Linux has gotten better, as in more friendly to new people, but I feel like if you are not a nerd, it's still too much. It is. The learning curve has definitely gotten shallower. The learning curve has gone down, essentially, for Linux over the last couple of years, with more distros coming out that are more geared towards being daily drivers and more user-friendly, like Pop! OS with the Pop Shop, making it easy to download software and stuff. But yeah, there's still a ways to go. I think because Linux will always be no matter what, it'll always be that, the nerd operating system. That's what, the nerds use. That's what the tech people use. So while it's always going to be that, it always has to be that first, It always has to be functional for that crowd. And it's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have it be this like open source, super customizable nerd kind of wonderland, and also be the operating system that grandma's going to boot up and use. So I think I don't think it's ever going to be that. But who knows? What are your thoughts on Linus's Linux challenge? I am not aware. Did I miss something? I don't know what the Linux challenge is. 5 gigahertz with no SMT, which made it suck. Yeah, get wrecked. If you go into Linux forum and ask a newbie question, then they don't. Yeah, that is a good point. For a lot of forums, especially when you're doing home server stuff and a lot of your stuff is Linux based, if you Google a question, you better hope that someone has already asked it, especially if it's a newbie question, because obviously everybody has to start somewhere. You can't just, I'm going to spin up some home server stuff and I know exactly what to do. There's always going to be a learning curve, and there's always somewhere to start, and there's always going to be questions to ask no matter what you're learning. So yeah, if you have to go into a forum, and I've read through some forums where people had the same question as me and they just got ripped apart like aggressively. I don't know why people are so aggressive about answering questions. I would never, if someone came to me and they're like, what's a processor? What's RAM? Do I need RAM for my computer? I would love to. It's so cool to be able to help somebody and explain to them something they're genuinely curious about. So I don't understand why people have to be so aggressive and basically assholes to newbies. So I get what you're saying there. It is, some forums can be just, I don't understand why they're like that. Yeah, when you come from Windows 10 to a gentle install for first time, it's not fun at all. Yeah, there's certain what's the meme, like I use Arch Linux. There's so many distros of it, and obviously there's ones that are more Windows clones that are more friendly, but there's so many distros out there, especially if you're a newbie and looking for, hey, what version of Linux should I run? Good luck. It's there's definitely a learning curve. I had to jump off for a second. You guys chat about your home lab. Also, what you're drinking. I went into my home lab a little bit, so I'll pull that back up. I'm just sitting here we've been looking at a freaking a Google search of the 5600X wiki for like 20 minutes. First of all, what am I drinking? This is a blueberry sour from Martin House. Yeah, Martin House, which is somewhere in Texas, right? Yeah, Fort Worth, Texas. So, what is it called? Blue Dream? Stop auto-focusing on my head. Here we go. Blue raspberry sour. It's really good. If you like sours, I'm not a huge sour fan, but This one is really good. I love blue raspberry candy, and it's almost like drinking a blue raspberry candy. What is that? Oh, Gen 2. Okay. I was like, gentle. What did I miss? Oh, yeah, let me go through and talk a little bit more. So basically, yeah, I'm running, my Proxmox is running on the bare metal system. I recently just upgraded to 7.0. So that was pretty cool. Super easy to do. They made it not difficult at all to upgrade. I'm running a couple of Windows VMs with dedicated GPU pass-through. So one of them has a 3070 and one has a 6700 XT. And those are going to be running. So Monday, the Folding at Home event on the LTT forum starts. So those will be running on there. I'm also going to use those for a video I'm going to make soon for building your own cloud gaming setup, which is essentially going to be spinning up a Windows VM, passing through a GPU, and depending on how you want to host your games, I might get more into that. And it's essentially going to be running either Parsec or Rainway. I'll get more into that, but that's what I'm going to be using them for. SyncThing is just there to back up everything. I love SyncThing. I have a dedicated video on that. Definitely recommend running SyncThing if you have a server that with files that you care about. Plex, everyone knows what Plex is. VPN, that's just a Ubuntu VM I use that runs specifically directly in my PIA VPN to where I can get movies for my Plex legally. Portainer, that I love Portainer. I do want to try Rancher soon. I know those are kind of the two big Docker orchestrators, but I'm a huge fan of Portainer because Portainer I feel like is more suited for home lab people who kind of just have one server running and just want to run some Docker containers, whereas Rancher is set up to mainly use like Kubernetes. And if you have like clusters where you run around with like failovers and shit, I don't have all that. So Portainer's more than enough for me. Pop! OS is when I was messing around. Up Downloader was just a clone of a VM, an Ubuntu VM that I used to. I never really talked about it a bit. Actually, I did talk about it in my network video, my dual WAN setup video, where I had AT&T and Spectrum. And Spectrum was dropping all the time, so I wrote a little script that basically tests my network connectivity every second and logs it so that I can go to Spectrum and say, hey, look, this is exactly when my network was down. That was running, but it's since been fixed. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. So I don't run that anymore. Windows 11, I have a Windows 11 VM just to test it out. I haven't played with it much, but it's Windows. I mean, on the surface, yeah, it's got the new start menu and shit, and some better search functionalities and stuff, and it looks cleaner. But unless you're really looking for differences in terms of functionality, I haven't seen much personally yet, so not enough to at least make a video on. All right, I'm gonna head out now. See you guys. Yep, see you, Nacho. Thanks for dropping in again. Appreciate it. Your SyncThing video made me do a Raspberry Pi with an Ubuntu server, WireGuard to my pfSense at home, and I put it in my buddy's house, and amazingly, it worked so well to back up my shit. Yeah, I don't know how SyncThing is still a free software. I mean, I like it because A, it just works really well. B, it's not super cumbersome. It's, you know, here's a web page with the shit you need to enter, and that's it. It can run on any device. There's a little client if you want to run it on Windows, which I do. It's just, yeah, it's amazing. It makes it so easy, especially like you said, offsite backups. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, somebody asked about the Linux challenge. What was that? I missed it. So he and Luke got into a Linux challenge on the WAN show about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the challenge is basically to run Linux for as long as possible until someone breaks and goes back to Windows. That's pretty funny. That I didn't know they were doing that. That will definitely make an interesting video for sure. I don't see. I'm trying to think of, while I was using Pop OS, what made me almost break. The one major, it depends on who you are and what programs you run, obviously, will be a huge factor. But for me, it was League of Legends not natively being supported. I eventually got that working, but it was a pain at first. And the major one is I use Premiere Pro for all my editing, which doesn't, there's no Adobe stuff on, especially Premiere. There might be like Acrobat or something on Linux, but you can't run Premiere Pro on Linux natively. You might be able to run it through Wine or whatever. I don't think so though. Maybe you can, but I would have to use DaVinci. I got DaVinci Resolve up and running on the machine, so I was also going to do, you know, I ran Pop OS for, you know, 2 weeks a month or whatever, and I had to edit. I would have to edit the video on it, meaning I'd have to use DaVinci Resolve, which I've used a bit to build LUTs and color grade stuff. I've used DaVinci for, but for extensive editing, I haven't. So that would have been another challenge for that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing or who ends up winning. Yeah, I'll have to follow that. I probably should start watching more WAN shows. I usually just catch like highlights. They do like clips of it. But yeah, that'll be pretty interesting to see. How do you feel about Mick? What is that? Oh, for cheap 10 gigabit Ethernet. Are those are you talking about the external cards? Is that what those are? MikroTik. Okay, so they do. Okay, I was thinking of something else. Do. 5-port desktop switch, 1 gigabit for. I haven't used any of these. So what's this? See 10 gigabit on here. 5-port desktop switch, 1 gigabit Ethernet port, 4 SFP plus 10 gigabit ports for $136. That's pretty good. Especially that small too. Damn. I have the 5-port. So is this the one you have? How do you feel about it? Okay. Oh, yeah, I have the 5. So yeah, is this the one you have? RG? But I've never used a MikroTik device. But damn, yeah, for $136. So the switch I have is the QNAP 408 something maybe. No. QNAP. Switch. So I have this one. So you get 8 gigabit ports on it as well as 4 10 gigabit ports. But yeah, that's $350. Like nearly triple the price of the MikroTik. That's the one I just ordered. Are you talking about the this is what you just ordered, Charles? Or did you actually order one of these QNAPs? I love my QNAP Switch. I know they're known for their NAS solutions, but when I was shopping around, I was like, well, I don't have too many 10 gigabit devices on my system, so I don't really need a huge, expensive 10 gigabit switch. I probably could have settled for a 2-port one, but I wanted some in case, I added some devices down the line. And $350 was reasonable for what you're getting here. But yeah, the MikroTik, if you don't mind using SFP and not using RJ45, then yeah, $120 is nice. I had to order the SFP adapters, which only came out to $180, so we'll see. Yeah, I mean, you need the adapters, which is an extra cost, but for the amount you save, definitely worth it as long as it works well. What'd you find out with those that you run out of ports with just 4 ports? Yeah, I mean, it depends on your use case. If you're using this dedicated as just your, I mean, I assume you would use this as for just your 10 gigabit connections for 10 gig switching. But yeah, I only have 2 10 gig devices in my home setup, and which is my computer right here and my server. The only one I would add, I can think of realistically that I would add soon, is I want to upgrade my router, my access point. So to I kind of want to reach back out to TP-Link and see if they'll send me one of their fancy access points that it's AX, so Wi-Fi 6, and it has the 2.5 uplink on it, 2.5 gig. So I mean the switch I have has 1 gigabit and 10, so I'd have to use a 10 gigabit port for that 2.5 uplink. But I never really had a reason to upgrade to a Wi-Fi 6 router because I used to not have any Wi-Fi 6 devices. I mean, just recently did I upgrade to the iPhone 13, and just recently did I get this iPad, and just recently did I get the M1 MacBook. So we didn't really have any Wi-Fi 6 devices in the house, so there's really no reason. But now that we do, I kind of want a Wi-Fi 6 router with a 2.5 gig uplink. Use DAC cables if you can. You virtualize a lot, which is smart, so you don't need a lot of ports. That's very true. The 10 gig, so I actually have dual 10 gig ports on my motherboard for the server. So I could theoretically run 2 of them and what do they call it, to smush them together? Not physically, obviously. I don't think that would work. Can't think of the word. Binding. So you can bind them together, and I could essentially have 20 gig to my server, but there's really no point of that. I don't have anything that's utilizing over 10 gig or really need to. Only have 1 gaming machine, and on Dell R710, so the 4-port is at least a start, I guess. I wanted the new TP-Link 10 gigabit switch, but I couldn't find it. Next day shipping, like the MikroTik. So do you have a, so you have a Dell, I only have one gaming machine, and on the Dell R710, so the 4-port. So do you have 10 gig on both of those? What card did you use for the Dell, or does the Dell R10, the Dell R710, I don't think that has built-in 10 gig, does it? So I guess you used a PCI card or something. Once you do 10 gig, you then buy older Mellanox PCIe cards and put them in everything. Yeah, that's, yeah, first world problems. And I did a video almost contradicting a lot of the stuff I just mentioned, where I talk about is 10 gigabit necessary. I did an entire video basically telling everybody no, it's not necessary. And my reasoning for that was it comes down to speeds on hard drives, because when you're moving data, it's only going to move as fast as your least common denominator, right? So with 10 gigabit networking, you're effectively getting max 1.2 gigabytes per second transfer speeds. But freaking, if you set up a couple of hard drives, even if you do put them in a RAID, you're not getting anywhere near 1.2 gigabytes from hard drives. If you set up a super fancy RAID configuration with solid state drives, you might get that type of performance. I do with ZFS and mirrored SSDs. I can almost get up to 1 gigabyte, but for a majority of people, it's so unnecessary. Unless you're working with like NVMe storage, then, I mean, at that point, you know whether or not you need 10 gigabit Ethernet. So you're not watching a RAID Owl video on, do I need 10 gigabit Ethernet? So, yeah. For the average user, it's total overkill. Yeah, for sure. You don't need it. And that's kind of the point I got in there. And I even got comments from people like, oh, stop telling, I got to find this comment. God, it might be hard to find. This guy was like so angry that I was talking about, that I said that 10 gigabit isn't worth it for a lot of people. Let me see if I can find that freaking comment. Let me go to my studio. So if you want to look, if you want to see what YouTube Studio looks like for a YouTube channel, this is what it looks like. And they give you a crap ton of analytics for your channel. It's insane. So here's my subs. Apparently I've gotten almost 2,000 in the last 28 days, which is nutty. Views, it breaks it kind of down by what's your most popular videos. Here's your comments. Y'all want to see, the funniest one is it breaks it down by your audience. And let's go down and see what percentage of my viewers are male. 98.8% male and 1.2% female. It honestly used to be below 1.2%, so I'm glad that I have such a massive female following now. Breaks down by age group, country. It's pretty cool. There's a whole bunch of shit in here. But I do want to find that guy's comment. I gotta go to that video. Maybe it's easier to just go to the video. It was the 10 gigabit. Man, that was a long time ago. Okay, how do I do this? Can I see comments in here? And okay, let's view it on YouTube. Here's 2020. Ew. Okay, where's the angry guy? Where's Mr. Angry Guy? Did he delete his comment? Oh man. Damn. Well, the guy came in here and was like super angry that I recommended, or I said 10 gigabit isn't necessary for a lot of people. I was like, dude, why do you care so much? God. Yeah. Well, long story short, or that was a lot of time just to say that. NVMe to get the full performance, or Truenas with a bunch of hard drives and RAID. Yeah, with Truenas, Truenas using ZFS is just crazy the way it utilizes RAM and caching. So you can get some really good speeds from Truenas with hard disks. I use 4 Gen 4 NVMe FireCuda 520s on an Asus. I want to get an Asus HyperX card, or Hyper card, whatever they call it. And it works awesome. 13 read and like 10 write. That's what brought me to, dude, yeah, that's insane. One dumb mistake I made, I can probably easily fix it, is that my boot drive for Proxmox is on a freaking Gen 3 NVMe drive, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, it's still fast, but the more VMs you put on it, the more that are utilizing that storage, the faster you can have storage on each of them. So, and I have 128 freaking PCI Gen 4 lanes. So the fact that I didn't use a Gen 4 drive when I put it together was, I knew I was going to kick myself. It was just so expensive for the drives when I built it that I went with Gen 3, but Mitchell Duhan, boys rule. Thanks, Mitch. Everybody knows boys rule. 98.8% male doesn't surprise me, to be honest. Yeah, I definitely wasn't surprised when I saw that nearly 99% of my viewers are male, because I don't think I've ever met in person a female. Just stop it there. I've never met a female. A female that would be interested in this kind of stuff. Obviously, they're out there, but probably one, and that's one I went to school with for engineering. So one out of all the females I've ever met, which is 2. Mitch, dude, what are you doing on this Friday night? I know you got better things to do than to watch me talk about home servers. Shouldn't you be buying some really expensive headphones? Mitch wanted me to make a video on headphones and audio stuff. And I keep telling him no, because A, I'm not so sure that my viewer base really cares about audio stuff. B, I don't care about audio. And C, that shit is so expensive that it makes GPU prices look reasonable. like audiophile stuff, bruh, it's insane. Just took a nap, about to watch Finch. That's the Tom Hanks thing, right? Just took a nap, dude. It's like fucking 7 p.m. God damn. Yeah, man, your sleep schedule's out of whack. What other stuff? Raspberry Pi projects. A lot of gear. Next time you're in NOLA, we'll do a video. Yeah, I'll bring my camera and we'll make a video. The headphones game can be expensive. Yeah, Charles. Mitch was over at my place evacuating from the NOLA hurricane, and he brought his cheap pair of headphones, and it came in like a freaking Pelican case. That one was only, what, Mitch, like $1,000? Yeah, it really does. Yeah, that pair of headphones was, well, like 1,000, 1,500. And then he's on my couch trying to buy $3,000 headphones just because they look cool. Shit's wild. I don't trust myself enough to get into audio because I'll just go broke. It's insane. What were they? They're what's the brand you sent me? Shit, what were they? They looked like they're like wooden cup open back headphones, I guess. Give me the brand. There was actually it was like a drop event where you had to like be spamming. There's what, like 30 colors of these headphones, and they released at exactly like 6 o'clock, and you had to literally be spamming refresh to get the color you want because there's only one of each color, and you basically have to get it in your cart and check out as quick as possible. And we were beaten. ZMF headphones. ZMF headphones. Okay. When you use the headphones as a phone device. Dude, these things are nuts. Oh, okay, they're not quite $3,000, dude. This shit's cheap, bro. 100. Why don't you have 160, dude? Get these. Oh, is these the ones you sent me? Oh wait, no. These were released on. These were released on. Yeah, what? Where's the new release? I don't see it. But these are just like the ones you can buy like right now, right? Yeah, the ones you were trying to buy were $3,000, like special edition shit. Nuts. As if. Yeah, nah, I'm good. RGBs built into the headset, add $1,000 with that. These don't even have RGB. Imagine if they did. Yeah, like these are the ones that... Are these the ones you tried to buy? Was it 9.3? Was that the Hurricane? Okay, yeah, 9.3 was when you were here. Okay. Wait, they... Oh yeah, sold out. That's right. So look, they released on not... Oh god, now it's not even letting me... So yeah, they released on 9.3 with all these colors, and you basically had to pick a color and like sit there and spam it. And we actually got one in the cart, but we got captured. We had to, what was it, fire hydrants? We had to click the fire hydrants, weren't fast enough. Damn shame. Yeah, so the sad thing is, Charles, that 2,500 is like That's not even the most expensive pair of headphones you'll have at your house, Mitch, right? What's the most expensive pair that your pops bought? I bet it's more than 2,500. Yeah, there's no way, man. Because not only do you have to have the headphones, you have to have the shit to drive it. So you need a really nice DAC, a really nice amp, and different DACs and different amps sound different, and you want to tune them to the specific headphones, and no way, man. Could you imagine having to build a different computer for like everything you want to do? Like I want to play Battlefield, so I need one computer for that. I want to play CSGO, so I need another computer for that. I want to edit video. Ah, right around 2K. Wow, cheap, dude. Pops is getting frugal in his old age. Yeah, man. It's an expensive hobby. Not that my hobby's honestly much cheaper. Camera gear. You want to talk freaking expensive? Go get into cameras, man. You will quickly spend a lot of money. It's nuts, the camera game. So I have, yeah, all in one. That's the best way to go. So for cameras, I have the Sony a7S III that I film all my videos on. I have I have one up here. We can take a look. One up here that does all the overhead shots. I have one behind me. I guess you can't see. Let me do this. Does this work? Yeah, I have one behind me. I have this guy, an A7S or A7R4, and then a shit ton of lenses. And that makes the headphone game look not bad at all. So, yeah, it's, don't get into cameras. I'm warning you. Different computers are called VMs these days. Yeah, man, you just got to spend some bank on a nice server, and then yeah, these days you can spin up a whole whatever pretty much you want in VMs. That's why I struggle to answer when people say, "Why do I need a home server?" It's such a hard question to answer because for the most part, no one really needs a home server in their house unless you're running production stuff out of your house for like a business. You don't really need one. It's about, wanting one and wanting to tinker and mess with stuff, because the kind of person who's asking, what do I need a home server for, probably isn't the person who's going to, spin up a bunch of VMs to play with different distros of Linux, or spin up a VM to run like pfSense, or have a bunch of containers to do a whole bunch of different services with Docker and blah, blah, blah. So I usually just answer, if you want like a NAS, that's a good place to start for building your own home server. Can you talk about your streaming setup? Yes, I can. 1 second. Asking for separate hardware. Sounds like MS. You can run a VM from MS. So yeah, I mean, you don't even have to have physical hardware in your house. If you have a decent internet connection, you can get by with having dedicated VMs hosted for you in the cloud somewhere. That's why I watch YouTube instead of create for YouTube, because once you buy a camera setup and the Adobe software subscription, you have to do it at that point. No thanks. Yeah. So I guess how I got into YouTube or starting the channel, obviously because I like tech is probably the main reason, but I've always wanted to get into photography. I've always thought photography was cool, but I never really had a reason to pull the trigger on a nice camera. So when I was like, okay, maybe I want to start a YouTube channel, so let me find the best camera for photography and for videos, and that will give me justification for spending a decent amount of money on it. So I bought a Sony a7 III, and well, the a7 IV is out now, so if I had to recommend one camera, that's what it would be. But what is this on the screen? Why is it showing like some chat? What is this? Is it not showing like all chat? I don't know. Let's go back to this. I don't know what I was talking about. Oh, yeah. The A7 III was awesome. It was good for photography. It was good for video. It's what I started my channel on. Then eventually I got more into it. It became more of a hobby and bought more lenses, and then upgraded to another dedicated video-centric camera. And I have a dedicated photography camera, and then this one Sony camera, an APS-C one, and it just got out of hand. But I do have a very overboard video setup for my videos and for streaming now. So at the very least, I have quality videos. So in terms of the setup for my videos, and I guess, and for streaming, what's the best way I can do this? So, damn, I wish I could like have a camera and kind of show you, but they're both kind of locked in. So my main camera sits in front of me and runs, it's a Sony a7S III. I recorded all to a Ninja Atomos monitor, and you can directly output from this camera. So this is the camera I film all my YouTube videos with. I'm also using it for streaming because I can output the signal from the Atomos monitor directly to a, what are they? Elgato 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 HD 60S Plus. So that's, that main camera feeds into that, which is USB to my computer. Then this camera up above me is kind of doing the same thing, HDMI out to a tiny little, it's a $20 HDMI video capture card. It's like this big. It's like a stick of gum length. Let me see if I can find one. It was like 20 bucks. And it brings the HDMI signal into my computer through USB. The only problem is that there's a significant lag. Like, I probably can't show it on stream, but this camera is probably like a good second behind the main one. So it's good for showing like top-down stuff, but and good for recording footage. But the Elgato is better, obviously, for like real-time stuff. Let me see if I can find it. What was it? HD video capture card, USB. It's a lot of words. It is it's this. $21. I mean, they have a bunch of different models. They're probably all literally the same thing. So this is what I use for this camera up here. I'd recommend it if you just want something easy to capture with, but in terms of like delay, it's a pain. I used to use it to record screen captures for YouTube videos, and when I'd have to like do gaming captures, it was a pain in the ass to try to capture gaming because it looked like I just sucked ass at every game because the input lag was awful. Is the capture card device? I don't think it's USB 3.0. That could be a reason why. Yeah, USB 2.0. This one's got good reviews. They're probably paid for though. This one doesn't say. I assume they're all USB 2.0 considering how cheap they are. Best chip in industry. Well, pack it up, guys. This is the one you got to buy. It's got the best chip in industry. Ooh, high gloss acrylic on the USB port. Wow. And an aluminum unibody design. Bruh, this... Why doesn't everybody own one of these? Jokes aside, these things are super convenient to have. But the Elgato HD 60 plus, whatever, probably just spend more if you want like a real-time streaming capture device. This mic is like a $20 USB mic. Fine. How would you switch between them so easy? Okay, so that's the cool thing. So I'm running Streamlabs with different scenes. So I have them both. Both capture cards are plugged in through USB. So I have both of them coming into Streamlabs. And on my iPad, I downloaded the Streamlabs deck app. So it basically connects to it and I can change my scenes from here. So if I want the overhead view, I can kind of just click here, overhead, and bam, now you're seeing the overhead view. So I can be like, hey guys, look at what I'm holding. Check it out. And that's what I use for my YouTube videos as well. And if I want to switch back to like the intermission screen, or the main screen with the camera, it's super convenient rather than having to go into here. I mean, it's not that hard to do. I can just go in here and click it, but yeah, so much easier to just reach over and touch a button. Yeah, the mic I'm using, it's obviously not the best mic. My voice needs a little bit of EQ to not sound awful. Yeah. But I didn't feel like setting up the EQ thing on this machine, so you're getting my raw vocals here. I apologize. So this is the one I have. $30. And I saw the reviews, 25,000 freaking reviews, decent ratings, so I went ahead and bought it, and I'm super impressed with it. I mean, 30 bucks, it sounds pretty good. If you want to do some EQ on it, you can download like an EQ software to mess with, you know, your vocals. But for my videos, my YouTube videos, I use a one of these. You guys are getting a nice view right now. You're welcome. I am using a, I need a scene where it's just my, do I have a, like a just webcam? Why do I not have one of those? I guess this is the closest one I have. But this is the mic that I use for my YouTube videos. This is a Rode NTG4 Plus. I really like this mic. It's not cheap. But when I was starting out the channel, I always wanted to make sure that the audio in my videos was quality, because I think, in my personal experience, for a YouTube video, I think the audio is honestly more important than the video, because a video or a YouTube video with really good quality video but with shitty audio, you notice it immediately. But a YouTube video that honestly, if you film it with your phone even and have a nice mic, it'll be so much better than if you spend a shit ton of money on a camera, but you're running a bad microphone or don't know how to mix the audio and whatnot. So that was my reasoning. I'll plug this back in. Wow, 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 wow. Oh, it would be a cool setup for all the Zoom calls. Yeah, like people are on their laptop, like the webcam shooting up their nose, all pixelated and shit, and then you just hop in with this. Like, hey guys, welcome to my podcast. You're on the air. Via live stream, use. Yeah, OBS Studio. Is that what did I? Yeah, OBS Studio. So OBS, you can use OBS Studio or OBS Streamlabs. They're the same company, but they're different softwares. I use OBS Studio for like when I just do recordings for my YouTube videos, but I use Streamlabs, as you can see down here. Streamlabs OBS for streaming. And they make it so freaking easy, man. I remember when streaming was getting popular back in the day, Justin TV, before even Twitch, before Twitch was Twitch, the shit you had to do to set up a live stream. Now it's like, download this program. We'll detect all your webcam and everything, and just tell us what account you want to stream under and press go live, and you're done. Streamlabs is a tough buy. Overlays are crazy with the deck. Yeah, I mean, I was kicking around the idea of getting a Stream Deck because they're cool, but then, man, just running this on the iPad is essentially the same thing. A bigger screen for my old man eyes. So, yeah, it's I don't know. I like it. I was streaming a bit a long time ago. Just messing around streaming like League of Legends and shit. And I'm very glad that you guys are in here at least, like, you know, talking and making this a fun experience, because it's so hard for people who are streaming and getting into it. You know, obviously I'm a small YouTuber, you know, I didn't expect to jump in this live stream and have freaking hundreds and thousands of people in here. But I'm super appreciative that, you know, you guys are in here, you know, chatting it up and making it, you know, a fun experience, because a lot of people, when they start streaming, it's freaking hard to get on camera and with nobody in chat and nobody to interact with, kind of just be entertaining, knowing that, you know, nobody's watching. Because I have a friend who started streaming about a year ago, and that's what he went through. For the first like couple of months, he had 0 or 1 viewer, and for a couple of hours you have to play games and constantly be, you know, talking and pretending someone's there, because, you know, if someone comes in by chance, comes into your stream and they just see you sitting there kind of playing your game, they're not going to stay. They're going to dip out. So to do that with nobody watching, that's tough. Eventually he got a pretty decent little community to where, you know, he'd hop on and have people chatting back and forth. So that was my one fear about jumping in this live stream today. Was like, man, I hope I don't sign in. And I mean, I have talking points, so no matter what was going to happen, I was kind of just going to give my opinions on these topics, and just that be the live stream. So having people actually to interact with makes it so much easier. Yeah, that Stream Deck idea via iPad is clutch sync. I never thought about it. I can't remember where I saw that it existed. Because I remember when the Stream Deck came out, I was like, oh shit, that thing's freaking cool. You just put it on your desk and, change scenes. I can even change like microphone volume and mute myself. So if I'm just like, somebody comes in and I'm like, oh. So now I'm back. You can change like scenes. You can do, there's probably a whole bunch of crazy shit you can do in here, but yeah, it's awesome. That's what I tell my buddy who streams. He's a couple months now and gets like 50. Dude, 50 is good. Oh, gets 50 at a time now. Dude, 50 is a good number, especially a couple of months in, because that shit's hard. You see, everybody's a streamer now. Like literally everybody is trying to stream, and you hop on Twitch or YouTube or whatever, and you see these guys getting tens of thousands of viewers. So you think, oh, if I jump on, I'm gonna get freaking, it should be easy. You don't realize how hard it is to build a following and put yourself out there for hours with nobody watching. So the fact, man, if he's getting 50 viewers, that's awesome. I mean, I've, 6, 7? The most I've had in here was like 16. So I would take 6 viewers that are interactive and talking back and forth, making this easier over, people who do like view botting. Like, hey, look, I have hundreds of viewers. You're still just sitting there kind of doing nothing. So yeah, 50 is good. That's a lot of people don't ever get to 50 viewers. And there's kind of like milestones, right? In streaming, I guess it's, you want to get to consistently having like 10 viewers, starting from nowhere. And, probably you want to get to 100 and then 1,000, you kind of have these milestones. And I think there's kind of that same thing in the YouTube world, especially from what I've seen. I'm wondering so you guys are seeing this chat on the screen. What is it not showing everybody's message? It's like dipping. I don't know. I got to figure this out. Why is this chat being weird? But yeah, it's the same thing I think in the YouTube world. When I started the channel, I started with no subscribers, obviously. I told, a couple of friends subscribe, so I had like 10. And then I posted on my Facebook like, hey, I never post on Facebook, but I posted like, hey, I'm running a tech channel. Anybody who's interested, subscribe. I maybe got like 10 more people to subscribe. So it's like 20 subs right out of the gate. And, you post videos and, you get like no views. And you just post things that people you might think, or that you think people would be interested in. And man, when I hit 100 subscribers, I was like, man, this is cool, triple digits. And, doing that without, I've never bought a subscriber. I've never posted my channel to like forums or anything. I've never marketed it outside of YouTube at all. So I got that first 100. I think it probably took a couple of months. And then after that, I think my first video to actually get views was like why I have a home server. That was back in my old house, and it got like, I think I saw it pop up to like 10,000 views, and I'm like, how does, I have like 100, or I have like 50 subs. How do I have 10,000 freaking views, man? So if you just keep making videos that are interesting and, people like, focus on quality, and so far, so good. I mean, I hit 100 and then it took a while. 1,000 is kind of the first milestone in YouTube, the first kind of official milestone, because once you hit 1,000 subscribers, you get to be a YouTube partner, meaning that you're allowed to run ads and maybe, I don't know, some other shit. But the big one is you're allowed to monetize. You're allowed to put ads, and I've never put an ad in any of my videos. I'll show you. You can see my revenue. I'll show you guys my revenue from my YouTube channel. Check it out. Zero. Wait. I want from all my videos. Show me all my videos. Yeah, estimated revenue. Nothing. Because I don't run ads. I don't plan on running ads. Because, you know, when somebody's going to watch a video, because my videos are more like how to do something. They're not really like kind of clickbaity, I gave away $1 million type videos. So no one wants to watch an ad, you know, when they're trying to learn how to do something quickly. So there's no real plan for that. But yeah, it's exponentially been growing, which is all I can ask for. It's crazy. The last month has gotten, obviously I know I'm still a tiny YouTube channel. I'm not sitting here talking like I've got freaking 1 million subs, but the fact that it's been all organic in a very saturated field, you know, tech YouTube videos, has been pretty cool. 100,000 views in the last month. I never thought that would be a thing. 1.8 subs, 1.8K subscribers in the last month. And if it keeps going that high, I think 10,000 is my goal. That's the next actual like milestone for YouTube, because then I can do like, I can put like a shop and put merchandise or something in there, and I plan on putting like doing a Patreon and a Discord server and being more interactive with the community. So I used to get 0 to 5 was what I meant. Yeah, 50 each Monday when it shows really good. I'm stoked for, yeah, dude. It's the same with YouTube, dude, and streaming. Like getting from that ground floor into something where you're actually seeing growth. That is, a lot of people don't make it out of that. So to even make it out of that is, and get somewhere where you're seeing progress, is awesome. Just because it's cool to have a small group in the chat, makes it easy. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, obviously, you know, as a creator, you want as many people in the chat, as many views as possible, but I think there's a limit to that. You know, you go to some Twitch chats where you can't even get a word in because it's just spam. It's like so many people. Obviously, you know, it'd be cool to have, you know, more than 7, 8 viewers, but this is my first stream for a small YouTube channel. So the fact that I have people in here and, you know, we can talk back and forth so easily, it's super entertaining, at least for me. Your content is great and high. Thank you. Appreciate that. Oh, what up, Tyler? Welcome. Welcome, cuz. Welcome to the stream. Beanies. Thank you. Super motivating, man. Yeah, my YouTube channel has 13 subs. Haha. I found you through my interest into Unraid and building my own home server. Yeah, super dig your content. Appreciate that, man. So fun because I don't even have an Unraid server. We were talking about that in my test stream the other day about Unraid, and I want to get into it, and that was a common theme of the kind of test stream I had the other day. There was a couple of us talking in there. I was like, yeah, I want to get into doing this. I want to get into doing this. I want to get into doing this. And there's so many projects I kind of want to get into that I need to pick one and do it. You know how, you know, I have so many things to do today that you just end up napping. That's kind of where I'm at right now. So the thing about Unraid I want to do, or I want to look into, it makes it so appealing, is freaking just being able to throw. I have a crap ton of hard drives over here. Just being able to just throw all those hard drives at it and have it build a usable pool of data. That sounds dope. So I do want to get into Unraid for sure. Tyler, what are you doing? So my cousin was dropped in. He was talking to me today about he wants to buy a new laptop, and his struggle is that he's been getting into doing a lot of Microsoft SQL stuff, so a lot of SQL work, specifically T-SQL, Transact SQL, so Microsoft. So he wants a Microsoft machine, but like me, he's very enticed by the Apple M1 stuff. So he's going back and forth of whether he wants a Surface laptop or a Windows machine or a MacBook, the M1 version. Because honestly, the M1 MacBook Air is what I have, and it's you're used to saying, oh, MacBooks are expensive. You're paying for the ecosystem. You're not paying for raw power, but it's kind of like not like that anymore, because the base MacBook, M1 MacBook Air, is under $1,000, and the M1 chip is freaking insane. So yeah, and then the Surface being Microsoft's version, in terms of build quality, it's top tier. Oh, you pulled the trigger, dude. Damn, dude, you were quick. I didn't think you'd do it today. So you went with a Ryzen 7 Surface Laptop 4. I think that's a good choice. Specifically, since you're using it for Microsoft SQL stuff, and having it natively supported on your machine is just it's gonna make your life so much easier. And at the end of the day, I was telling them, a laptop or any computer is a tool. I mean, some of them are, if you're a tech nerd, they're cooler than others. They have different features, but you got to take a step back and think, are these features even ones that I need? Are these things worth paying for? So yeah, I recommend the MacBook Airs. They're super cool. The M1 ones. So I had a MacBook Pro Intel version, and I basically sold it and bought an M1 Air for like the same price. I only downgraded in hard drive space. I went from a 512 to a 256, but both of them had 16 gigs of RAM. The one thing that I miss is on my old MacBook, I had Thunderbolt ports on both sides, so I could charge it from either side, which was something you don't realize you're going to miss until you don't have it anymore. So, but otherwise, I like that. The M1 Air way better. And it's got the upgraded keyboard. My old one had that shitty Apple. I don't even remember what they called it. The butterfly design that sucked ass. So upgrading to a decent keyboard was choice. So you went with the Ryzen 7 Surface Laptop 4. I think the only downside of the Surface Laptop was the port selection, right? That was kind of the only real downside of it, because the build quality is good and the Ryzen mobile chips right now are solid. Charles, got to run, boss. Thanks for the awesome stream. Keep it up. The promised land isn't far. I appreciate that, Charles. Thank you very much. I do, based on how this one's gone, I do plan on doing some more streams. I mean, this has been fun. So, yeah, man. I'd like to see you be a regular around here, man. But, all right. See you next time. One USB-C port. Yeah, dude. And it took them forever to freaking add one USB-C port. I don't understand. Like, high-end, not even your mid-range Windows laptops these days. I'm talking like the Dell XPSs. I guess those are more higher-end ones, on par with the price of a Surface laptop. But, you get a much better port selection. I don't understand what Microsoft has against freaking ports. It took them forever to just add a USB-C. How do you like Linux? I just put Mint on my old laptop for the first dip into Linux, but I'm honestly loving it. I thought you were going in a different direction there. I thought you were going to be like, this shit sucks. But yeah, so we were just talking about this before you jumped in here, and I was talking about how I have a dual boot set up on my main Windows machine behind me. I have Pop! OS installed to an SSD, and I have it dual booting And I was running that for exclusively for about a week. And that's when I posted, I don't know if you saw the post or follow the channel, the stuff I post on the YouTube community stuff, but I did a poll like, hey, what video are you guys interested in next? And the least voted for one was my thoughts on using Pop! OS exclusively. So I kind of tabled that and don't run it as much now, but I do plan on eventually making that video, and I do have thoughts on it, but I like it. There's obviously some hurdles in terms of Linux. I talked about it earlier, so I'm not going to go super deep into it again. But yeah, obviously everything's not going to be natively supported in terms of programs and even hardware. But if you can get over those hurdles and get the programs that you rely on running, then there's so many distros of Linux right now. I know Mint's a popular one, Pop! OS, Ubuntu obviously, that will make that transition from Windows extremely easy, assuming you can get those programs up and running. The big ones for me were League of Legends. That's like the main game, the only one I really play anymore, or right now. So I had to get that set up through Lutris or Lutris, however you describe or pronounce it. But once I got that set up, I had League of Legends. The main one was Premiere Pro, is what I used to edit videos. It's not supported on Linux right now. You can probably maybe get it running through Wine, but I haven't been able to. So I was going to use DaVinci Resolve to edit. So that was going to be part of the video. Like, hey, I downloaded Pop! OS. I'm using Linux. Here's what I like about it. Here's what I don't like about it. Here's my struggles. And I was going to have to edit the whole video on DaVinci Resolve because that's what's available. But I was talking earlier, the main thing I love about Linux is how customizable it is and how easy it is to get necessary like programs or packages you want running. Like, oh, I need this program forever that runs tasks. It makes it as an easy task scheduler. Sudo apt-get install forever. Boom, you have it. It's just so convenient to work with, especially for software development where you're having to cycle through different packages and get a whole bunch of different stuff. It's so easy to manage on Linux. And Mac Mini with an M1 Max for a server. I think a lot of people were disappointed that wasn't announced at their recent meeting, whatever they just did. I think a lot of people were hoping that they'd see a Mac Mini or an iMac Pro version with an M1 Max. There's a lot of M's in there. But I assume eventually it's going to come out. I can't see them dropping the ball on that chunk of money that a lot of people out there who like the Apple ecosystem, but don't necessarily want to overpay for the laptops. Not that it's really overpaying anymore. Those things are freaking insane. And don't necessarily want the iMac. The Mac Mini is such a good piece of hardware. So I use DaVinci, but yeah, exploring the Linux ecosystem has been really enjoyable, and I love the command line, sudo apt, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's once you get used to using the command line for a whole bunch of shit, it's so much quicker to get things done and so much less, I don't know if clutter is the right word, but less bloat to get things downloaded. Like, when you freaking open Windows, you've been using your Windows machine for a couple of years, and by now you have 1,000 startup programs and 1 billion services running in the background. And Linux, just I feel like it's so much easier to keep it clean and efficient. That's just my thoughts. I'm not a heavy. I use a lot of Linux for my home lab, but daily driver I don't use Linux. So I know there are a lot of people out there who only daily drive Linux, will never touch a Windows machine ever again. So I'm sure they have better thoughts on it than I do. But that was the whole purpose of the video I was going to make with Pop! OS, was like, I'm not a power user on Linux. I'm a Windows guy, a Mac guy, a guy who's dabbled in Linux for his home lab. So here's my experience, which might be more aligned with you guys looking to make the switch from Windows. So that was the idea behind it. So we'll see. I plan on making the video eventually, but right now I have like 10 or so videos on a list that I'm kind of deciding which one to go with. But we'll see. There's no shortage of videos I want to make and no shortage of topics that are out there. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. I'll see how many. Did I get any subscribers since I've been talking? 1. Yay. So what time is it? 8:30. I'll probably, I guess I'll wrap up here. It's been about 2.5 hours. And it's been fun. We had up to about 16 viewers, which is more than I thought I would get. I was kind of nervous about jumping in here and getting like 0 views and no interaction, but the fact that you guys are in here and being interactive has been awesome. So I'm going to wrap it up in here. Thanks to all of you, those of you that are still out there, for hopping in the chat, talking with me about tech. It's been fun. I do plan on doing this a bit more in the future. So that's it. I'll post this for, we got one. Okay, I'll answer this last question before I dip off. Afromew. Is that a reference to Afromew, the League of Legends player? Or to the Pokemon? How did you come up with the name Raid Owl? It's a long story, but the gist of it is that I started building an app, an iOS app, to track happy hours for bars and restaurants. So I built that up, and the name of the app was Happy Owl. And that's actually the name of my LLC. So when I was going to create a tech channel, I was like, do I keep it like owl themed or bird themed? So I came up with so many iterations of something owl, owl eye, owl, blah, blah, blah. And I was like thinking of what video game terms or tech terms I could use. And I came up with like a raid. I came up with Raid Owl, and that stuck. The domain was available, was the main thing. I got the .com for it. So that's what I came up with. I went on Fiverr and paid somebody to design a logo, and that's how it came up. But if any of you just joined, I'm sorry I am dipping now, but I will probably make this stream available live on the channel. So we talked about some cool stuff, some cool tech stuff. There was a lot of back and forth conversation. So if you didn't catch it, it'll be available on the channel. And I plan on doing more streams like this in the future because I honestly had a really good time. I hope those of you that were here were entertained. But that is it. Thank you guys for being here, and I will see you guys in the next stream. So tune back in. Oh, and I can stop it through Streamlabs.